Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Revival Season 1, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So it's interesting how the opening of the episode starts with us rewinding 20 years ago, specifically 20 years before Revival Day, because their mom's birthday is like roughly around. Like I said, I keep conflating. I can't remember. It's like when the day she died or her birthday. I believe it was her birthday. Is like roughly around the time of Revival Day, and it also turns out that's also it seems like they specifically went like 20 years before Revival Day. So we might be fudging dates and stuff. So like, but like for them to go out of their way to be like, oh, 20 years ago before Revival Day makes me feel like that's kind of supposed to imply like 20 years exactly. So that would mean like M was born on what would essentially become Revival Day 20 years later. If that's what that's supposed to be implying. And once again, her mom was birthday's kind of relatively around that time. Like I said, I don't know, like, why go through the trouble of specifying before Revival Day? Why not just say 20 years ago? So it feels like it's supposed to imply, like, M's birthday shared. So it's kind of funny, like, the day she becomes a reviver is also the day she was born. You know, so it's interesting. Either way, tangents and all that aside, it's the day she was born, and we also got a little more info about Patty. It seems like, because I thought the cancer thing was later in life, it seems like Patty already had cancer before she had Martha. So it's a situation of like, I think her body was probably already, and that's where they were kind of like, should she have really gotten pregnant and try to have another kid? I don't know if like she got pregnant, like, was it like while she was still going through like chemo treatment and stuff like that, like going through that, or was it more of a situation of she was already in remission at first and then they ended up having Martha? I'm curious like how that correlated, because either way I think her body was in a weakened state, either because she was still going through it or she already went through remission or whatever the case may be, and that played a part in why Martha has the bone condition that she does. We also saw Ken was there. It's interesting because he was a sheriff at the time, so I don't know if that's like, I guess maybe like eventually, like I guess maybe that's kind of implying Wayne was one of the cops that worked underneath him at the time and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, we heard the conversations like last episode and prior about like, oh, like the dynamic between them is like, yo, we were close enough, kind of had your back, but did not know like I mean, it makes sense. He would work his way up from being a sheriff all the way to potentially being like, the mayor of the town and stuff, but still. And then you tie in all this stuff about Patty being very like, she was into very hippie stuff about like having a birth in the water because of the power of water, which we know there is something to that because Ibrahim was connecting like the Revival Day stuff to like some stuff that was into water because he's studying like some algae growth from said river. So he's seen there's some correlation or connection there. So water does seem to be, I don't know necessarily intrinsic to it, but like there just seems to be some interesting parallel going on there. And I do think it's also beautiful full circle wise, where sadly Dana finds herself in the same situation she did at the end of episode 4. But it's interesting because like the end of the intro, like the flashback, it's like, okay, here's Dana, holding a very fragile infant Martha, and then it's like the inverse, like both in episode 4 and this episode, because it becomes a situation of, yeah, I'm the big sister that's supposed to protect you, but it's like here you are, funny enough, being the one that protects me. And I think it's also supposed to be the irony of like, right, because I'm the one that protects you because you are, not just our age difference, but also you have the fragile body, and your fragile body now kind of works in conjunction with you being a reviver, and you ended up saving and protecting her. So I love how that all kind of comes full circle by the end of the episode, but we'll get to it. Before we got to the actual opening, the code opening ends with us seeing Martha present day, kind of like redlining, kind of looking scary. I'm like, oh, cool. So we're kind of we flashed back to them. We kind of played a little in media res, I guess, to kind of end that scene with Dana and Martha when Martha was an infant, to just be like, oh, here she is now and just how did we get here. So we have Dana getting visited by the reporter who came to her she's trying to correlate what happened to Dana, what happened to Aaron, and also that to the Black Deer case. Because they recapped it at the beginning, like I want to say like her dad's the one that's chastising her for like screwing up the Black Deer case. And because Dana has such like feels I think she feels like she failed the Black Deers with that whole situation. So when the woman's like, yo, you need to look at this, like look at my notes, Dana does it, even though that's going to be a massive mistake on her part. But it's like because she got lambasted by the town because people felt like she like screwed the pooch in this situation, and she has her own regrets about it, so she doesn't want to open that can of worms again. I mean, plus you're also legitimately recovering from a gunshot wound to the gut, so you're also not in the best condition. And so whatever history they have with that woman, like Dana in particular, it's like you are like, you're almost like the last person I want to see. I don't trust you. Because I'm curious if she's the one that screwed Dana over when it came to the Black Deer case, because she might have written or reports like being like, oh, Dana screwed up. Like she might have been the one that kind of put Dana under a lot of scrutiny. So it's like, why would I want to trust you? I don't trust you. Because maybe it's like, also maybe Dana like, you know, it's that thing of, oh, this is supposed to be off the record. I was just talking with somebody and ended up getting used against you. So maybe that's where the deeper layer of I don't trust you comes from. But that's just speculation on my part. The really ironic thing is that the person that she's kind of trusting is Brent when she shouldn't. So it's ironic that he's there like, oh, I'm going to stay in the room because you want me to, even though he is mixed up in all of this because we know he killed Aaron and he's mixed up in all of this stuff. So the irony being that he's there in the room listening to all of this. I don't know if he caught up to that reporter. If he didn't, he is talking to whoever he's working with later, so there's a good chance they might either she gets dealt with off screen or he dealt with that before he met his fate this episode. But I feel like they would have went out of their way to show that this episode, like if he did something. So either she's still out and about and fine, and whoever he was talking to is going to handle that on their own. We'll have to wait to see, but. And Dana probably will eventually regret it because she'll be like, if I paid attention to those files, I might have been able to trust her and listen to her, and maybe we could have resolved this situation because she's definitely dead. She's super dead because you know too much and this is all a massive cover up for something. So it's interesting too when you like put that in conjunction with like her dad coming to visit her. And for him, it was a little scary seeing her in the hospital because he realizes like, yo, how close he was to losing her. I think it probably brings back some of the Patty stuff. It's not the same, but it like no one wants to see any family members in the hospital when you've had to deal with medical situations in the past and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of that plays a role in all of that. Plus, you know, we know he has a lot of regrets about how things have played out between him and Dana. But then you also have him telling Dana, like, yo, like, I know why you want to leave. And he's like, if you want to, I can put in a recommendation. Because, like, they fought and argued about it. Because it's like, oh, you're kind of abandoning me. You're abandoning your sister. But for him, it's like, if you need to get as far away from here, it's good. It might be a good thing because I don't want you sticking around here if it means you're going to end up that much closer to a grave. So I'd rather you leave. It didn't get to this point in the conversation, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he was like, you might as well take M with you as well. I don't know. I don't know if he'd had that perspective, but he'd probably be a lot more okay with letting her and Cooper go, and maybe even Martha if it meant keeping his children and his grandson away from danger in this regard, especially, once again, so close to losing Dana, so. Obviously, they talk about the whole McCrae of it all, but she's like, it can't be McCrae. Like, yeah, he's an opportunist, and apparently he's selling revive. That's where the limbs and stuff came from, a reviver. So it's like, okay, he's into some nasty, shady business, but he's definitely not the guy that shot me because he doesn't have the gunshot wound in his right arm. So it's like, okay. Which he's trying to lay it on thick of like, yo, I made so much money. I'm not going to turn on those who I'm working with. Because he's like, yeah, some reviver gives their body parts over willingly. Like, why is it that big of a deal? I'd assume it's like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like for, I mean, I was about to say like, what other reason would you have for like selling body parts? I mean, I guess like, maybe people are, because we don't know what the business thing is, but I guess maybe whoever the checks are working for is buying them because hoping to extract like whatever's in revivers to bring them back, maybe trying to take advantage of it. Because I was about to say, are you trying to do like the whole organ thing and you can sell them on the black market? Because I was about to say, like, other, like, why would you need to sell like, well, I guess it could also be like, yo, you're trying to bring the reviver in piece by piece, crossing the border. So I think that's kind of a part of it. So maybe it is just about like the continuous organs regrowing. You can sell them. Was it this or something else? I brought up the whole Cassidy from Preacher thing about like his foreskin being used to like make like, I don't know, some kind of like facial cream, if I remember correct. God, it's been a while since I saw the final season of Preacher, so I don't remember. It might have been this I was making that parallel for, or maybe it was something else entirely. I don't remember what it was. It might have been. I was like, the only live action thing I'm continuously watching right now would be like, not listen. If it wasn't this, it had to be Resident Alien. But I'm like, what was the context of me like thinking of like the Cassidy thing? I don't. Maybe it was something. Maybe it wasn't actually an anime. I don't know. Either way, they didn't really get into the nitty gritty of the operation. Only just like I said, selling pieces to like revivers. But like I said, it could have just been like cut them up into pieces so you could easily like transport the body across borders. But it is purely about, hey, like you're putting reviver organs on the black market. Maybe that really is, or maybe it's just selling them for, because the way they also talk about it, they did kind of talk about it almost like a, I don't know whether someone is like I said, extracting something from it. I feel like they never really got into the exact things of like what this whole operation's about. But speaking of the checks, they need someone else to cross the border for them because McCrae got arrested. And it's like, well, Dana is the person at play here. And they know exactly where to get a reviver from, which I was like, ah, damn. Like, I figured the whole Martha being a reviver was going to come back to bite them. Never expected in this way, but it's like, well, it makes sense. Like, Dana, in her attempt to try and find out who murdered her sister, ended up telling the worst possible people pertinent information that would come back to bite her. So that set this all in motion. They literally showed up at Dana's place, kidnapped Martha, Cooper, and Jordan, who was over there playing, well, because she's been staying with them. Because I'm about to say, like, right, she's been staying with them because, like, yeah, things are complicated at home, so. And they eventually end up calling up Dana just to let her know. But it's the twisted knife, but also it's like, right, Cooper's held as leverage, but also they need her to let some of those trucks transporting said revivers through without much hiccup. So it's like, that's, I figured as much. Like, kind of, well, I thought they were just going to straight up blackmail her, or her dad. But then it was actually a situation of, no, we're actually extorting you to like pass this. Like, I figured something along this line was going to happen, but once again, didn't expect the details to be what they are. And so Dana has no choice but to comply. But with the two vehicles, she's like, all right, like Jordan or, well, because I don't think she knows that Jordan was taken. I think she might know if Jordan, I think she knows that Jordan was over there. Yeah, because once again, like Jordan was staying with them, but it's like, right, she thought like M was going to be in one of those vehicles, so she's going after one and her dad's going after the other. And so it's like, right, she needs injection. She calls it the pterodactyl, I think is what she calls it. But basically it's like, yo, give me like the shot that'll like get me through it, push past the pain, give me the adrenaline I need. And partway through it, like she had just hit Brent earlier, and he comes in and she sees the blood spot on his arm and is like, wow, literally the worst time to find out about this. I'm so curious what would have happened. Like, I'm sure he would have been alone with Dana. Like, would he have tried to do anything while they were alone? I guess probably he would have. It kind of benefits her to know now. I mean, granted, it didn't stop him from trying to murk her in the hospital, but still, like, probably getting her alone, he would have still went ahead and tried to kill her. He probably wouldn't have tried to play, good guy anymore. But yeah, tries to kill her. She beats him with with the bedpan, and he's like, stop throwing piss all over me. Once again, certain things where you're just like lines of dialogue in shows or things, sometimes you're like, that just never expected that to be a line of dialogue you'd ever hear in something like that. I also wasn't expecting Dana to give us the finisher she did, and I love it. Feels poetic. He's up there like bloody mouth after getting his ass handed to him, like hitting the face with the bedpan again, and he's just like, well, metal bedpan. I gotta specify that. But he'd be like, Dana, why won't you just die? And funny enough, same thing to you, pal. Literally drops the TV on you, and I'm like, well, you don't have time to explain anything to some nurses, so all you have is like the cops showing up after probably the nurses found his dead body in there. So no time to really explain. She's talking to her dad later on. It's like, Brent's the one that shot me. He's dead. It's like, well, Jesus. Okay, I'm gonna find the vehicle. She found the one that she thought M was in, but sadly, M's not. It's the other reviver they've been cutting up and transporting. But her dad was looking for the other vehicle but couldn't find it. And it's because M had already escaped. And she's like, yo, out for revenge. You got to give it up to M. She was tearing the whole place up by herself. Like, and you're just kind of giddy. You kind of wish you could have gotten an opportunity to enjoy all the death and destruction she was causing when it came to the checks. But it's like, because Adam's death was off screen, because we just saw her with the box cutter. Then the other one came, the middle child. She came over, stab, 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 stab. She was shanking him hard, and then cut. I think at one point she cut his leg, or either like kicked his leg in. He had the gun. She grabbed his hand with the gun and made him shoot himself. I was like, that was badass and brutal. It's like, yo, she's like, especially later on when she's like crying like the blood tears. I don't know why. Kind of, and especially with that kind of like dark aesthetic she's got going on with the hoodie and stuff, makes me kind of, I was getting, especially because of the regeneration and everything, I was like, I'm kind of getting Crow vibes from this a little bit, because that feels like something you would see in like a Crow property. You also got to give it up to Dana, like, once again, gunshot wound, a little high, still pushing herself. I mean, the wound is definitely open because she's bleeding from her stomach again, and managing her way through. Ibrahim managed to get his way there, and he ends up running into Jordan, who kind of sets herself free. Because luckily nothing had happened to her yet. Still traumatizing being kidnapped and all that, but luckily he got her out of there. And then we have the confrontation with Anthony, and you're just like, oh, I hope you get it super hard, dude. Like, you deserve to get, like, you need to be, like, brutalized, essentially, because of what you've done. Kidnapping, Cooper and Jordan and Martha, and then like he stabs Dana. It's like, Jesus Christ, she's still recovering from a gunshot wound, and now it's like, oh, she's getting stabbed multiple times, because he wants to kind of make it more intimate and make her pay. But luckily M came to him and started choking him out, but he tried stabbing her, but that didn't do anything. So, reviver or not, like, her bones are still fragile, so he breaks her arm. She breaks her arm even further just to kind of break like one of the bones and has it sticking out, and uses it like a knife and jabs him in the neck and through the bottom of his jaw up through his head. I'm like, yeah, I just want you to suffer a little bit more, but it's like, hey, you're dead. That's all that matters. And so Emily sets Cooper free and goes over to Dana, is like pleading with her, like, please be okay, please be okay. It's just like, your sister's kind of inadvertently in this situation again. It's like, once again, Dana kind of the one that set this all in motion, but still, it's like, she already made it clear, like last episode, how if anything happened to Dana, she'd never forgive herself. So while that's happening, we get the scene with Ibrahim and Jordan and Cooper, where whatever it was, while this was all going down, that light bubbles up from the water and it makes its way over, and it looks like an alien. I mean, it could be like something supernatural. It looks like full-blown science fiction because it looks like an alien. And Jordan walks over to it saying it's okay. And she looks back to Abraham and Cooper and says, like, thank you for being so kind to me. And I'm like, what's going to happen? Because at first I was like, is it going to take, like, is this the thing that's making everyone revivers? And I'm like, is it going to take it from her? And is she going to go back to being a corpse? But then her body disappears, and then it disappears too. So I'm like, did it take her away? Like, what is going on? Like the revivers, like, could it be like something was implanted in them and it kind of, because it's interesting because when they were in the woods, like, it was reaching out to Jordan and she reached out to it too. Like, is it like that with any revivers, or it says it specifically Jordan? Because, like, maybe what if this thing, like, is implanting something in these corpses and making them come back, you know? Interesting timing, which is because what's currently airing on Netflix is The Summer Hikaru Died, an anime based on a manga. Similar themes and elements about, you know, someone potentially dying but coming back but not really themselves, like something else. So it's there. So I don't know what to quite make of that. That's just kind of the biggest what the fuck moment in the episode. You're like, what the fuck is that? What is that? What does that mean? What's going on? And the only people who witnessed it are Cooper and Ibrahim. So, but at the same time that's happening, it seems to be getting healed by Martha, and it's like, is Martha special, or is it because that thing's doing what it's doing with Jordan that allows Martha to heal? Like, I don't know what to make of that. Because, like, why is she suddenly being able to heal someone the way she did? Like, because I was thinking, like, is this going to lead to that creature come over and then maybe it make Dana into a reviver? Even though, like, I was like, oh, is Dana going to be a reviver in episode 4? But I'm like, no, revival day is done. Like, if you die post revival day, you're not coming back. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing and I don't know. I'm like, I'm so interested. I'm like, oh, I want to know the answer to, like, what's that all about? I completely also forgot to talk about when it was introduced from McCree that the body parts he was buying were like that of like a 20-year-old reviver, and there's not too many young ones, and it ends up being Rhodey. I don't know if I kept calling him Rodney last episode. I don't think so, because I have an uncle named Rodney. But I think I said Rhodey last episode, but I could be mistaken. I constantly forget the character's name. But Wayne snatches him up, even though, like, Rhodey's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Terrible timing, too, because M tried to contact him and let him know, like, yo, I'm sorry how things played out. I miss you. But then she got kidnapped, too, so who knows if he did contact her beforehand. But, yeah, we see where Wayne is stashing the revivers. What's he called? It's called Riverside, and it's basically like cells. They're locked up like prisoners. It's essentially a concentration camp in the form of just, you know, it's just a prison, concentration prison, essentially, and no due process or nothing. And the guy that was kind of getting experimented on, not kind of, straight up getting experimented on last episode is here. And he's like, yo, I had more rights as a criminal than I do as a reviver. I did my time. I did my time in jail, and here I am under worse conditions and stuff. So, and that's the thing, no one's going to know Rhodey's going missing, because I don't know if we really ever discussed whether he has family that would report him missing. So, Wayne kind of did that for nothing. Like, will he go and release Rhodey? But it's like, well, maybe, like, because he saw the video of what Rhodey did, and it's like, he just assumed, he's also assuming the worst, being like, well, Rhodey's got to have something to do with this, even though it's like he tells you, like, I didn't have, but it's like, no, you're not willing to listen to anything. Because this is before they found out that Martha was taken along with Cooper. So it has nothing to do with that. That was just kind of like, oh, whose body parts it is. It's like, this kid is weird and cuts himself, so it's got to be his body parts. But you're not going to go back and rectify that situation, because you're like, well, the kid did something dangerous like cutting himself, so he still might be a part of this. I'll have to question him, but you got sidetracked and didn't have time. We'll see what's going to happen on that front. I'm also curious what's going to happen with Jordan's parents. They were the ones kind of not too, like, keen on her. They're like, that's not my daughter. And now it's like, whoa, she's gone. And I wonder, are they going to regret not keeping her a lot tighter and, you know, at least making her time here lovely? Because Martha, Cooper, and Abraham and Emily treated her nicely, but not anyone else. You know, that's the real shame and rub of it all. That even her own parents treated her kind of like an outsider and kind of like a freak. So it's going to be interesting to see, will there be any response from them at all when they come looking for their daughter later. We'll ultimately have to wait to see any potential answers for any of this going forward into the next episode. Especially because well, Brent's dead, so whoever's working with him, that's still a large question mark. Like I said, my money's bet is on the governor, but also the person that the Czechs were working with. I mean, Mama Czech's not going to be too happy that all three of her sons are dead. But yeah, like aside from that, there's also their boss that is probably going to come looking and what, oh, like, because this is his business venture that's being completely gutted with this operation being shut down. So, two antagonistic groups. I don't think there's any correlation. I do believe those are two separate groups. So, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of is the aftermath of both of those situations playing out the way they did this episode. Like, what kind of aftermath finds its way to the town in the form of these two different groups, and how they both respond to their respective situations being blown up like the way they have been. But like I said, we'll have to wait to see what the next episode has in store for us. But that's really all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.